All right, hi everybody. Happy Tuesday, June 1st. Hard to believe that it is officially June, but thank you all for being here with me live. We're here for my Intro Psych classes. I see all of you putting your names in the chat. That's perfect. Someone let me know if you can hear me and see me okay before we keep going. Perfect. Great. Okay, good. Good. All right, great. Looks like everyone can hear and see me just fine, which is fantastic. Don't forget to put your first and last name in the chat so that I can record that you are here. And if you have any questions or comments or anything as we go through, feel free to put that here in the chat as well. And I will try to be monitoring that on my phone. Hello. A lot of you saying hello. Hi. So very exciting. We are 1/4 of the way through our class already. It's a very short class where we have 1 week done and 3 weeks to go. So a couple of things we'll do tonight. I don't need to go through the web page anymore, which is fantastic. Of course, if you have questions about it, I can point things out. But what we'll do is I'll give you a little bit of feedback from last week. So some things that I noticed in the discussions and the exam. I'll go over the reminders for this week. And then, of course, we'll give you the Twitch extra credit question, when our next stream will be, and all of that kind of information. So that'll be our plan for the evening. So we should be a little bit shorter for sure than we were last week when I was going over everything for the first time. But if at any point you have questions or you're confused about something, this would be a wonderful time to ask me. So please feel free to utilize the chat and do that. And thank you again to those of you who did do the free subscribing with your Amazon Prime so that I could download your names for being here. Thank you. And also hopefully that means you have drastically less interruptions with ads, which is always nice as well. So thank you for those of you who did that. But let's go over to Canvas together and we'll go through everything that I just mentioned here. So if we hop onto Canvas, too many windows open here. So we are officially in week number 2 as of yesterday being a holiday, but I still was able to grade everything and get all that posted for you. What will happen, and a few of you emailed me about this, is you'll notice that when you take your exam on the ebook site, it doesn't automatically transfer into Canvas. So don't be worried if that happens. I have to manually import the scores over. So once the week has ended, I will bring all those test scores over into Canvas and I'll grade all of the discussions, usually on Monday, the day after the deadline has passed. And then I'll send out an email with some general feedback. And then I'd like to take a few minutes to go through that with all of you on here so that you can just kind of know where everybody was at. So last week, if we just go back for just a moment and look at week number 1. So every week we're covering 4 chapters. So you have lots of lecture videos and things to watch, and then the 2 discussions and an exam. The 2 discussions last week were largely fantastic. I was really impressed with what I saw out of all of you. Really great research questions. A lot of them are really interesting and fun. A lot of you were interested in studying, sleep deprivation and the effects of stress. Several of you had topics related to COVID. There were a lot of really interesting research questions that you came up with, and then great explanations of how you would do that and advantages and disadvantages. I also thought the neuron discussion was largely fantastic. A little bit more of a struggle than the research one. Those of you who lost points on the second discussion typically didn't go into enough detail about how neurons communicate with each other. I was looking for some mention of electrochemical communication, which I talked a lot about in the lecture video, but that neurons communicate with each other in an electrochemical manner, so the electrical signals with ions and the chemical signals with neurotransmitters. But otherwise, for the most part, what I saw on both discussions was most of you did a wonderful job of meeting my expectations and standards for getting full points. some of you forgot to respond to a peer. So just really quickly, I want to show you this in our discussion for this week. So one of the ones we have this week, if I just click on discussion number 3. So you have the questions that I've given you, and those are worth up to 13 points. But then you also need to reply to one of your peers to get 2 points. And that's what makes up the 15 altogether. So make sure you're doing that for every single discussion that we do. So you'll notice, for example, Vincent right here has replied. And let's say I really like Vincent's ideas about dream theories, right? And what I would do here is I would hit reply down at the bottom, and then I can comment on his post. So make sure that you read through a few people and then pick whichever one jumps out at you, and you're going to comment on that in addition to answering the questions that I have for you. So my questions are worth a total of 13 points, and then those last 2 points come from responding to one of your peers. So I want to say there were about a handful of you who forgot to do that. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that to all of you in hopes that you can earn full points moving forward. So what you'll notice is that every week when I grade the discussions, you'll receive a score. I created a rubric, and then sometimes I'll give you a comment or two to let you know something you could have done better or something I really liked. I sent out in the message I sent out yesterday a way to find your grades and feedback. So if you're like, where's my score? Where can I find that information? You can also find it right here. There's a page that says all about, where did it go? How to find my feedback. It's right here. So it's minimized. So there's a page right here, finding your grades and your feedback. So if you weren't able to see your score or you don't know where that would be, you can watch this little video that I made for you showing you how to find your graded feedback from me. But hopefully all of you saw your scores, and again, most of you should be really happy. I was pretty impressed with what I saw out of the discussions. We also had our first exam last week. I don't know if anybody in the chat would like to, share how they prepared and if that worked for them. But a lot of you did really, really well. So if you have any strategies or tips, feel free to put those in the chat, and everyone could benefit from them. But just a couple of statistics for you so that you can see where you fell in relation to everyone else. The average test time was just under 60 minutes. So 59 minutes was the average amount of time that people took to take the test. So you had 75. Most people finished in under 60 minutes. A few people were higher and a few were, of course, lower. You're welcome. So you would say you saw your score but not the feedback. Okay, great. I'm glad that you were able to find it, and you watched the lecture videos like 3 times, right? If that helps you, that's totally fine, right? Whatever it is that helps you to prepare. Hopefully a lot of you use the study guide. If you use the study guide, hopefully you also saw that it was literally every term that you would need to know for the test. So if you prepared with the study guide, you should have done really well overall on the test. I think it's very straightforward. I hope you would agree. But if anyone else has anything that you did, feel free to put it in there in the chat. But as I said, the average time was 59 minutes. The average score was an 88. So just shy of an A, which is fantastic. That's a very nice, solid average. The high score was a 75 out of 75, so 100%, and the low score was a 37. So a little bit of a range, 37 to 75, but overall most of you got an average of 88. So there was a lot of people who got A's, a lot of B's, and then of course there were some people who I would imagine wish they had done a little bit better. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to use this first exam as a learning experience. If you did really well on the test, approach the exam this week the same way, study the same way and the same amount, use the study guide the same way and all of that kind of stuff. But if you wish you had done a little bit better, remember my recommendation to you last week was that you maybe write or type out all of the terms on the study guide, and you could have that in front of you when you went to take the test. And I think that's something that I know is a lot of work, but it would definitely pay off. So if you wish that you had done a little better, this is a good time to kind of play around and tweak what you're doing, see if you can make some improvements on your reading or on the watching of the videos or the study guide and study prep. But if you did well, All of the exams are formatted very similarly, similar style, so now you kind of know what to expect. So I don't know, any questions or thoughts or comments or anything about the exam, about the materials from week number 1 before we move on to week number 2? Just want to see if you have any thoughts or comments. When choosing an answer, I found it really helpful to focus on the process of elimination. Also, taking random notes as I read through the chapters helped my brain recall the information. That's fantastic. Definitely a great strategy, right? I know it's not A, eliminate A, and I'm pretty sure it's not C, right? Now you're down to like 50%, so that's a great strategy for exam taking just in general. So thank you for adding that. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, anything else about week number 1? So if you have anything, of course, feel free to put that in the chat, but I'll keep going just in the interest of time, just to be respectful of your Tuesday evenings. So let's take a look at what we have going on for this week. And I've tried to make the class very consistent to help you have an idea of what you need to do and what to expect. So if you look at week number 2, you'll see a very similar format to week number 1. We have 4 lectures, chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, 2 discussions, and then you have exam number 2 and Twitch extra credit number 2. So very, very similar style to last week. Another great way of keeping this straight, so I have everything organized for you under the week, but you could always at any point as well go to the syllabus. And on the syllabus, I have kind of a short reference point for you here. So if you went to the last page, again, you could see that for week number 2, we're covering chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. You have 2 discussions and an exam. So if this is helpful for you, I like how organized it is and how it's very clear. Or you can just go to week number 2, and everything that's under week 2 is something you are responsible for doing by this Sunday night. The study guide helped with the whole thing and pleased with the grade that you received. That's fantastic. I literally go through after I've made the exam and I write every term or concept on the study guide. So if you've prepared with it, you should be in fantastic shape. So that makes me happy to hear that it was helpful for you. Okay. So for this week, we are looking at 4 chapters. So we're looking at consciousness, learning, memory, and cognition. Right? So we're looking at 4 very kind of core concepts to the field of psychology. So make sure for each of these that you're opening the lecture. And remember, the lecture has these 5 tabs at the top. So first page will always be summary. As a side note, this is probably one of my favorite topics in psychology, looking at consciousness and sleep and dreams. So a very fun topic, I think, or cluster of topics. The second page is always going to be that beyond the book, and there's a couple of, I think, fun and helpful videos that I put in here. There's a great one here on change blindness, and then a very helpful sleep tutorial, and just some information beyond the stuff that's in the textbook. And of course, you can listen to the audio as well if you wanted to do that. The in pop culture page, lots of movies related to consciousness. So a couple of clips here, a really great one from Step Brothers about sleepwalking, Deuce Bigalow about narcolepsy, and then Yes Man about Red Bull. Lots of songs and books and things as well. So lots of links on here. And then the key terms in review, these are all the terms that you need to know for that chapter. And application, now that you have read through the chapter, how can you apply it to your life? And this might be something that's really helpful for you this week for the discussion on dreams. If you have a hard time remembering your dreams, I did make a little video with some tips on how to remember dreams if you tend to struggle. Somebody wrote here, I did want to mention that all 4 study guides are available through the book if you want to go ahead. That's totally true. So if you wanted to work ahead a little bit and prepare for next week, you can read all of the chapters. You have access to all the chapters at any point, and then you can of course pull up that study guide as well. And I can show you where that is really quickly, and then we'll come back If we open up the ebook page, log in, and hopefully you save this or have it bookmarked, but let's show you this really quickly. So once you're on the ebook page, if you click on additional resources up here at the top, that's where that student is talking about. So you can go on here and you can click on study guides. Now this extra credit and handouts and activities, those aren't for our class. That's if you were taking this with me in person, which will hopefully happen again at some point soon. But if you did want the study guides, you can at least get those on here. My PowerPoints from the lecture are also on here if you wanted to use those as a resource. But all of that is under additional resources right here on the ebook page. So that's a great suggestion. If you're anxious to work ahead, you can definitely do that right here. But otherwise, let's go back. Make sure, again, for this week, you read through each one of these lectures. So there's a lecture for each chapter, and then there's a lecture video for each one as well, where I went through with the PowerPoints and talked about it in a little bit more detail, gave you some examples and sometimes some video clips. Then you also have your 2 discussions for this week. So discussion number 3, you're looking at dreams. You're going to read a short article on dreams, describe a dream that you had recently, and then connect that to some of the theories about why we dream. And I don't know about you, but I love dream interpretation. I think that dreams are really, really interesting, sometimes incredibly random, but they can definitely be very interesting. And so this gives you a chance to maybe play around with interpreting or looking at a dream that you had recently a little bit more, and then reading about some theories as to what dreams are and why we dream. Why does sleepwalking happen? Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm not sure that we know. It's almost a hiccup in a way, and I talked about it a little bit in the lecture. Sleepwalking occurs in stage 4 of sleep, or stages 3 and 4, when we are deepest into our sleep, and it's relatively common. A lot of people sleepwalk and sleep talk, and I'm not sure why it happens. I'm not sure that we know the answer to that. There's a lot of weird little glitches that can happen for people during sleep. Sleep paralysis, lucid dreaming, right? The list goes on and on, night terrors, but it's definitely a really interesting thing to read and look into. Let's see, I sleepwalk, I was taken to a doctor and they couldn't explain it. Yeah, there's so little that we know about sleep and dreams. We sleep a third of our life away if we sleep 8 hours a night, and we still don't understand sleep in the slightest. It woke me up. There's some dreams I remember to this day. Sleep paralysis. As a kid, right, there are people who wake up and their body is still in REM. And in REM sleep, you're essentially paralyzed. So you can't move your voluntary muscles, but you're awake. It can be absolutely terrifying. Makes me think of Haunting of Hill House with Nell, who suffers from some sleep paralysis, or at least they explain it as sleep paralysis. Let's see what else. My medicine gives me strange and vivid dreams as a side effect. Lucid dreams are crazy. Yeah, some people have lucid dreams where you can kind of control them. It's almost like a very vivid daydream. But there's an incredible number of strange phenomenon that happen during sleep that we can't explain. So a very fun and interesting topic. Sleep paralysis documentary on Netflix. If you remember what it was called, put it in there for us. But yeah, me too. I love The Haunting of Hill House. Bly Manor was okay, but Hill House was definitely creepy and very well done. I enjoyed it too. Sleep paralysis used to terrify me. That would be terrifying to wake up and not be able to move, but to be aware of your surroundings. And I talked about it a little bit in the lecture, but we used to think that these phenomenon with dreams were caused by demons. I mean, the term nightmare comes from the idea that a mare or a demon would sit upon your chest as you slept at night, causing you to have frightening dreams. Really interesting like lore and ideas about dreams and nightmares and all of those kind of things as well. They think you're crazy, right? Yeah, it's interesting, right? Lots and lots of fun things to look at. So you'll look at dreams a little bit more for discussion number 3. Let's see, and then for discussion number 4, you'll look at the topic of memory. And so again, we're looking at consciousness, learning, memory, and cognition this week. And so for memory, you're going to be memorizing a 28-digit sequence of letters and numbers, and kind of talking about how you could do that if you needed to retain that for a long period of time. So those are your 2 discussions. And again, don't forget to not only reply to my responses by hitting reply right here, but also to read through some of your classmates' responses and then to reply to one of them as well. You're welcome to reply to more than one, but at least one to get those 2 points of credit. So those are the 2 kind of main things. Make sure that you're reading the chapter in the ebook, watching the lecture and the lecture video. Don't forget the 2 discussions. And if we go back to the ebook page, remember the chapters are right here. So you can read through all of the chapters by clicking on them here on the ebook page. The other thing that you have this week is you do have your second exam. So exam number 2, very similar to the first one, same style. There aren't any diagrams in this one, but there is a little bit more matching in this with some of the theories that we talked about. Yep, demons sitting upon your chest was thought to cause sleep paralysis, and then later nightmares. That's where the term comes from. So for exam number 2, here is the study guide. And just like before, if it's on the study guide, it could be on the test. Yeah, you should prepare for it to be on the exam. So this exam is on chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. So make sure that you know everything that's on here. Again, if you wish you had done a little bit better, maybe study a little bit more like you would for a normal in-person class, or write or type out all these terms and have them in front of you. But make sure with the exam, a few kind of tips, again, that you're studying and preparing. Be mindful of your time. You only have 75 minutes. Most of you finished with lots of time to spare, but just make sure that you're watching that clock. Make sure that you save all your answers. Don't wait till the last minute to take the test. So, try and do all those things to set yourself up for success so that you don't run into issues by waiting until the end of the week. So, those are some of the things about the test. If you click on where it says exam 2, it will remind you to go to the ebook page. So the exam is on the ebook page just like the first one. So once you are here, you'll click on exams. And it will give you all those same reminders from before to save your answers and that you can use anything and everything at your disposal. So if you scroll down, here's exam number 2, and you'll hit begin your attempt. And again, the same style, format, roughly the same number of questions. So hopefully at this point you know what to expect, and you can continue doing wonderfully on the tests. Those are all the big things for this week. I do have the Twitch extra credit question for you that I'll give you in a moment, but are there any other questions or comments, thoughts, anything at all related to the materials to be covered this week or the elements that are required this week before I give you that extra credit and just a couple of last thoughts and reminders for you? Just wait just a minute, and again, feel free to put that in the chat if you do have any questions or thoughts. While we're waiting, let me give you a reminder here, and I might move this up. We are supposed to go camping up into the mountains on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I have pushed our Twitch live stream is a little later next week than I would like it to be, but I'm definitely pushing it back a little bit just so that I don't have to rely on having reception up in the mountains. But there's a chance that we don't go. We're putting in a pool, and which is super exciting, and they're almost done. And so if the timing doesn't work out, I will end up staying and I'll move it back up. But for now, our next Twitch live stream, so this will be for week number 3. And again, this is later than it will typically be, but just to accommodate for that, will be on Friday, 6/11 at 8 o'clock p.m. Okay, so Friday night at 8 o'clock. And again, if you aren't able to be there live, you can always watch it later. I will post a link to that underneath the extra credit in Canvas. But my 40th birthday is on Sunday, and so we are going camping for my birthday. So yes, I'm very excited to eat lots of cake for my birthday, and then we'll have our live stream on Friday night. And again, if I just end up not going, I will let you know, and we'll move it up in the week so that you can have that information a little earlier. Okay, so it looked like, well, thank you. It looked like there were a couple of questions. Let me scroll back up here so I can answer them. The difference between images and schemas. So images are just any image that you would see. So when you're like looking at me, it would be an image of me or an image of my cup, right? Just any kind of picture or image. A schema is a way that you are organizing beliefs and like setting expectations for something. So maybe you have a schema of what to expect from this class based on other online classes that you've taken in the past. So I hope that helps. Oh, thank you. Look at all of the wonderful, all of you wishing me happy birthday. Thank you very much. That's very sweet. A few other things. Let's see. There were a couple other questions. Right. You love to say that you blast that song, right? I don't want to sing it because then it'll be stuck in my head forever. State-dependent memory. Yes, so I saw your email that you sent. So state and context-dependent memory are very, very similar. So something that is state-dependent memory puts you in a certain biological state, right? So for example, if you were drinking coffee when you were studying and it caused you to have a feeling of alertness and increased arousal, then that would be a state that you entered into. Or let's say that you were drinking alcohol, right, and you were drunk from having alcohol, if that would be a state that you entered into, a physiological state. Versus context-dependent memory has to do with the environment and the context that you take it in. So if you were in a classroom and they always turned off half the lights, you would hope on the exam they would turn off half the lights in order to trigger that same context. Or let's say that you like to study in a certain... My cats are fighting. A certain spot in your house. You always study in your room. Then you should take the exam in your room where you're in that same context. So I talked about them a little bit together, that state and context-dependent memory. Whenever you can repeat any of those elements, it tends to help you remember. So if you always study drinking coffee and entering a state of like alertness from the caffeine, then you should take the exam with coffee. If you like to study, as I mentioned, maybe listening to music or in a certain spot in your house, that context could be really helpful for you, and finding ways to recreate that context on the exam might help you to remember a little bit better. So yes, they both can kind of go together. Listening to music would be an example of context. Right. Yeah, so context would be that you try to recreate the things in the environment. A state would be more of a biological level of arousal that you have, or alertness that you have when you're preparing or studying. So hopefully that helps a little bit as well. See if there's any other questions that I missed. It looks like that was all of them for the moment. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. So let me give you the Twitch extra credit question for this week. So Twitch extra credit question number 2. So there is a clip in the chapter on learning, and I will show you again where this is. I showed it to you in the lecture video, but it's also in the Canvas lecture online. But I want you to identify the US, I'm sorry, I can't type, US, UR, CS, and CR in the Attack of the Quack clip on learning. Okay. So you don't have to define the term, so I'll write that in there. Hint, you are not defining the terms, just identifying them. Look at, let me fix all my mistakes. You are not defining the terms, just identifying them. Right? Identifying. Okay, so let me show you where you can find that clip, but this is the extra credit for this week, just to give you one more opportunity to practice what can be a very difficult concept. So one of the units this week is on learning, and classical conditioning has a bunch of different elements to it. There's an unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. And I gave you lots of examples in the video and in the lecture. So if we go back to Canvas just for a moment here, if you go to the Chapter 6 lecture, Chapter 6 is all about learning, and then on the Beyond the Book page, I'm sorry, it's on here somewhere. Right, so there's a clip here related to The Office, which would be a wonderful practice as well, a great prank that involves classical conditioning. And then right here on the last page on the application, here's the clip that I'm referencing for the extra credit. So this clip right here is called Attack of the Quack, and it's a great example of a prank using classical conditioning. This poor little guy is brushing his teeth and playing around the house and gets shot with a Nerf gun, which gets paired with a quack sound. So what you'll be doing is you'll watch this little clip, and then you'll identify the US, UR, CS, and CR. Not define them, but what are they in the clip. And before you try to do that, make sure that you've read through Chapter 6 and watch the lecture video that I made for you, because I gave you a lot of examples to help you with something that can be a little bit tricky. So when you're ready to answer that extra credit question, you'll go right here to Twitch extra credit number 2. You'll click on the link, and then up here at the top you'll hit Start Assignment, and then you can type your response in the box right here and hit Submit. Okay, so one more time how to get to that video, right? I love the confetti, right? You have successfully submitted. So 2 different ways to get to that Attack of the Quack video. The first one is I do show it in the lecture video right here, the Chapter 6 lecture video. And the second way is if you click on the Chapter 6 lecture, it is on the last page right here, application. Right here, the only video on the page is the Attack of the Quack. Okay. Is there any way we can access how long the previous exam took us? It should show you on the ebook site how many minutes that it took you and your score if you click on your gradebook and then click on that element. If you aren't able to figure that out and you really want to know, you can email me and I should be able to help you find that information. But in the ebook page, when you go to your gradebook up at the top, you should be able to see your score, and if you click on it, it'll show you what you missed and what you got right, and how long it took you as well. Okay. All right. The only other thing I want to point out really quickly, and then I'll see if there are any questions before we call it a night, is last week. So I did post the recording of the Twitch session from last week. It takes a couple of hours to process and download, but I'll try and get that up for you either later tonight or tomorrow morning. So you'll see that right here as soon as I can make that available to you. But for this week, all of these things are due before Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So make sure you read the chapters, read the lectures, watch the videos, click on any links and watch any videos I give you. They should be really helpful. Do the 2 discussions, and then don't forget the exam and the extra credit. So those are the requirements for this week. I want to mention something really quickly, and then we're done unless there are any questions. Next week, when week number 3 opens up, so this class is 1 week at a time, but our last week of the semester ends on a Friday. So I didn't come up with this, the college sets the schedule. So next week, in order to help those of you who might like a little bit extra time, the last 2 weeks will open up next week. So when I do our Twitch session next week, I'm only going to talk about week 3, but I am also opening up week 4 for those of you who might like to work ahead because you have a little extra time, or maybe need a little bit of extra time to work on week 4 since it's a shorter week by a couple of days. So I'll talk about that more next week, but if you notice that weeks 3 and 4 open up on Monday morning, that was purposeful to give you a little extra time for those of you who might like to work ahead or who might need a little extra time for that last shorter week. So again, I'll talk about that more when we get a little closer, but I just wanted to mention it in case you noticed that Monday and were maybe confused. So those are the things that I wanted to remind you of. Are there any other questions, comments, anything at all in the last few minutes that we have here together? You're welcome. You're welcome for the extra time. I'll hang out for a little bit to see if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat. If you haven't already put your first and last name, make sure that you do that at this point so that I can mark down that you were here. And of course, you can go back and watch this later on Twitch. The recording will be there as soon as we're done. But if you don't have any questions, that's it for our time. You're welcome to take off. Have a wonderful rest of your week. It's gonna be hot. It feels like summer, but have a wonderful rest of the week. And then I'll see you all next Friday, the 11th at 8 o'clock, unless I let you know otherwise. That will be our scheduled Twitch session for next week. You're welcome. Oh, well, thank you. That's nice of you. Nice of you to say. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I will be older when I see you next. But thank you. Have a wonderful night. We can all go check out the sleep paralysis documentaries on Netflix. But thank you. Yes, I really hope I get to go. I don't know if any of you have been to Dogwood Campground up in the mountains, but a very, very pretty campground. So I've got my fingers crossed. Right? Bachelorette party, right? Yes. So it's good to start your stuff early for sure, right? You don't want to have to worry about that later. Oh, for sure. Right. One day before yours, so June 5th, right? Well, happy early birthday to you as well. Eat a piece of cake for me. I'll be waiting. But thank you. Stay safe, yeah. All of you stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Oh, yeah, mine too. Mine is on Sunday, so we have the same birthday. So we can eat cake on the same day. But thank you. All right, I'm gonna minimize my video, but again, I will hang out a little bit. Oh, let me show you this. How to view feedback on discussion. So if you go to Canvas, and then right here where it says Help in Campus Resources. So if you click on Modules, Help in Campus Resources, right here it says Finding Your Grades and Feedback. So I made a little video for here. It's pretty brief, but it'll show you how to find your scores and your feedback on Canvas. And a lot of it has to do with going to your grades and then clicking on the items. But this little video right here, I just walked you through how to find your scores and your grades so that you can know what my feedback to you was. So you can continue to do well or improve if you didn't get all your points. Okay. Very true, very true. Look at all of us have how many people have birthdays on the 6th? That's funny, right? All right. Any other questions or anything that I can answer for you? Again, I'm going to minimize my video, but I'll hang out for a few more minutes here if you do think of anything. Sounds like lots of us will be eating cake on Sunday. That's a good day.